one thing that every great leader of every great organization will tell you is that it doesn't work unless you have key people that you can count on, people that are loyal, people that do the things behind the scenes that make everything go. Every great leader will tell you that. And I'm wondering, do you have people in your life that you can count on? People that are always going to get things done, people that you just know when they say they're going to do something, they're going to do it, and people that make everyone around them better. That's what you need in life, and that's going to be the subject of today's episode of the Audacious Faith Podcast. Welcome to episode 32 of the podcast. So good to have you back. Hope you've been catching all the episodes because they've all been great. And today will be no exception to that. I'm excited about the guest that I have, somebody I've been wanting to get on here for a little while now. And someone that I met, I would say about 7 years ago. We were talking before we started this episode. And she came basically walking into our office in San Dimas, California. She was a student at the time at Azusa Pacific University and was doing some great things with some other companies and organizations she was working with as well. If you saw the podcast last week, you saw Jay and Ronnie Gothier that were on here. And of course, they're connected with Tenacity, Team Tenacity Financial. And what people don't realize, and Jay and Ronnie would be the first ones to tell you, is a large reason why that organization and business is doing as well as it is because there's somebody who does so much to make sure it runs efficiently. And that is my guest today. So I want to welcome Sherri Cubangbang, and she is the unsung hero that's behind the scenes that many people don't often see. So we're so glad to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So what I want to do is let people see a little bit more about you and kind of learn about you. Mm-hmm. Let's go ahead. Maybe you can start off with like your upbringing. I know you weren't born here in California. Mm-hmm. Kind of what your family was like, and also the journey that brought you to faith.
Yeah, got it. So I was born and raised in Hawaii on the island of Kauai. It was fun growing up on the island. Small island, so we knew pretty much everybody. I am a middle child. I have two sisters, one older, one younger. I have no brothers, so I don't know what that is like. Okay. My parents are happily married to this day. Let's see. So my faith as a Christian, I actually grew up as a Catholic. Mm-hmm. So I went to Sunday school, went to church on Sundays, and it was good. It didn't really actually hit me until I went to high school. So I had a friend named Rana who invited me to church. At that time, I was going through communion, going through the whole process as a Catholic. But it wasn't until I got invited to their church where I actually found out that, a big part of faith and believing in God is actually having a relationship with Him. Mm-hmm. And so that was something that was missing, like something big that was missing being a Catholic. And, it's nothing against Catholics. If that works for you, as a believer, mm-hmm. That's for you. But for me personally, that was a huge thing. It really hit me differently, having that aspect in my faith. And, from that day on, it pretty much changed everything. And, that was the day I became a believer and believed in God and having a relationship with Him. And, for that, I'm extremely grateful for my friend Rana for inviting me.
Awesome. So you're mentioning you're in a small island, which is something I've grown up in Southern California all my life. So I can't even imagine knowing pretty much everybody. But that's kind of the way it was, huh?
For the most part.
So is it major culture shock then being in a situation like you are now where mm-hmm. there's just millions of people?
Yeah. Surprisingly, I've gotten that question a lot moving to California. First off, I knew immediately that I didn't want to stay on the island. I knew there was a bunch more opportunities out there if I came to the U.S. Okay. We call it the mainland.
Right.
But
right.
And so that was the reason why I came here. But when I arrived here, people asked me, do you have culture shock? And I was confused at first. I mean, I did go to Azusa Pacific University, so the people around there that I was surrounded with were pretty much the same people that I was surrounded with in Hawaii.
Okay.
And so I didn't really have that culture shock that probably a lot of other people had. So it didn't really hit me as much
Got
as
it.
far as that goes.
So once you made the decision to follow Jesus, you said that, church was a part of your life, but then the relationship part came in. And so it became much more real to you as far as every day is concerned. Obviously, a relationship is something that's cultivated on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So how did life start to, what are the most major changes that you noticed?
Let's see. I know it was the people that I hung out with.
Okay.
Let's see. Growing up, I guess when I got introduced, when I got invited to church, it was in high school. So I was a junior year. I think it was sophomore probably. And I didn't get baptized until my junior year. But prior to that, I guess I hung out with a different crowd.
Okay.
That probably wasn't healthy for me. And if I had stayed within that crowd, I would have probably gone on a different path than I am now. So that was one thing that I've noticed, just the people that I've surrounded myself with. And just seeing the world differently. Personally, myself, I grew up as a shy, reserved person. And to this day, I still am. I guess you could call myself an introvert. But having that faith just helped me to, live differently. But in a sense that, knowing that it's going to be okay and that,
Right.
that I could trust the path that God has me on, as opposed to not knowing where I'm going and just being.
So perspective.
Yeah.
Perspective, definitely.
Yes, exactly.
I want to pick up on what you're saying because you're mentioning about an introvert. There's a lot of people that are watching right now that probably are introvertish. Now, as they're listening to you in this podcast, they're thinking, she doesn't seem like an introvert because she communicates well, she expresses herself well, does the ideas. And a lot of introverts, it's amazing how, because I would be right along there with you. That's my natural tendency as well. It's amazing how they learn. Introverts can be extroverted when they need to be, right? So how did some of those skills start to come in? I mean, you went to the mainland, obviously. I'm sure it happened somewhat in college. Is this a continuing development for you as far as these personal development skills?
Yes, for sure. It's always something that I continue to work on. If I get my energy from being, alone, working on myself. But yeah, I have moments where, I speak up when I need to. There was a time, despite me growing up as someone who's quiet and reserved, there was a moment in, I think it was middle school, where I had an opportunity to speak in front of a big group of people. I think I was part of a program, and so I was just introducing, what that program was. And it was then that I realized that I had a gift for public speaking.
Yeah.
And so I knew in the back of my head that that was something that I enjoyed. And it just because, someone's introverted or quiet or shy doesn't mean that you can't step out of your boundaries and do something that you thought was impossible for you. In that case, for me, it was public speaking. But, part of self-growth is always, working on who you are and growing who you are. And as I've gone through life, God is completely amazing. He's been blessing me with people and experiences that helps me to step out of that comfort zone. And it's just confirmation that I'm heading on the right path and that I'm meeting the people that I need to meet, because despite, who I think I am as an introvert or someone reserved, there's something bigger for me, and that's the cool part about it, I guess.
Absolutely. And a lot of people probably don't know that some of the most famous public speaking type of figures are actually introverts.
Yeah.
And that's something that I didn't know for a long time. And it's amazing, though, in front of a crowd, how God just gives the ability to communicate in a fantastic way. So you take this journey, you're coming to APU. So was it specifically for APU that you decided to come this way, or it was just that was the connection and your way out?
Yeah, no, I knew that I wanted to come here, California specifically, because I guess it's the closest to Hawaii.
True.
But part of having a Christian faith, I wanted to make sure that I went to a college that has a Christian background. And so based off, the colleges that I applied to, APU was the one who gave me a scholarship, and everything just worked out that way. And
Nice.
That's how I got
So
there.
what was your major in APU?
I majored in accounting.
Got it. Right. So, and that's still serving you now with some of the things that you do.
Some of the things, not quite, believe it or not. It's funny, when I went to college, I didn't quite know what I wanted to study. I knew I loved math and working with money, and so I thought, hey, maybe I should try accounting. And when I went into accounting, I was already deep into it, and so I had to finish it. But I found out, after I graduated, going into an accounting field, that wasn't something that I found fulfillment in.
Okay.
But I guess everything happens for a reason, and despite that fact, it led me here.
Right. So it took you on this journey, and you're bringing up something that we've mentioned in some other podcasts as well, that everything that a person does contributes to the next thing. It's all part of something. And something else that we've discussed, and that maybe some people out there are kind of in this place right now, people for some reason sometimes get stuck in their own plans.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, wait a minute. This was the program I signed up for. It's accounting. You're saying you got to a point where, wait a minute, I don't really enjoy this. I don't really want to spend, I can do it, but I don't want to spend the whole rest of my life pouring all of my efforts into this. So you were willing to make a shift. Some people don't make that shift. Do you see that? Because you work with clients, you work with people all the time. Do you see some people that seem to get stuck in their own plans?
Yeah, I believe I see that often, and a lot of that is fear, and they don't want to regret what they've already gone through, or all the money they spent, or the time they put in.
Sure.
That could be a reason. Yeah, for me, I happen to, I believe everything happens for a reason. I
Right.
met a friend who introduced me to, tenacity,
Right.
where I am currently. And for me, it was an easy shift, because I saw, where tenacity was going.
Right.
A lot of times, someone asked me, if you really want to do, if you're not sure what it is that you want to do, or keep doing what you're doing, find someone who's been doing that specific career or position you've been doing for 40, 30 years,
Right.
and see, where they're currently at in their life, and see, ask yourself, is that where you want to be, 40, 30 years from now?
It's a very
and
good
so
question.
that was something that I've been going through my head as an accountant, and unfortunately, that wasn't the place for me. And when I asked that same question in tenacity, it's completely different. I see myself in a different position, and it's just completely different.
Right. So when I met you 7 years ago, you were doing bookkeeping,
Yeah. Yes.
right? And with a good organization, Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah.
How'd you connect with them, and what did you learn when you were there?
Yeah. So it was a Google search.
Okay.
They had an accounting assistant position. I applied for it, went in for an interview, and I got the position. I knew, when I graduated with an accounting degree, that I wanted to work for nonprofit. I didn't want to go to the corporate route and
Right.
Work tons of hours doing
Sure.
that stuff. And so that's how I was led into Habitat for Humanity. I've learned a ton. I mean, The people there were completely amazing. It's amazing to work with people who is really focused on the mission more than what they can get for themselves.
Right.
And so it was more like a selfless work that they're doing from their heart, and it just taught me just people skills.
Sure.
How to put yourself out there to serve people, and really make an impact in the world. And no matter
Right.
how small you think it is, it's really huge when it comes to like specific people that you're able to meet and get to know.
So I would think, and tell me if I'm wrong, that experience was a key one for you. Just seeing that, what you're mentioning right there, mission. Because a lot of people only look at financial expedience. How is this going to benefit me?
Yeah.
How am I? There's ways to make money. There's a million ways to make money, right? So what you're saying is, especially in the connection with faith, life purpose, that it was important for you to be doing something that had something bigger than just the paycheck.
Yes.
It's something that was going to make a
For
difference.
sure. Yeah.
So you saw that, you learned a lot of that from the way you saw the way they were driven just to make an impact on people, right?
Yeah.
People,
Exactly.
and some may not be familiar with Habitat for Humanity, so you want to explain it just a little bit, what they do?
Yeah, for sure. So they're a nonprofit organization that is really focused on helping low-income families become homeowners. And so they help people go through that process. They actually build their own homes. People donate their time to help make that happen for them. So that's one of their big missions.
Right. And so look them up if you're not familiar with them, because they do a lot of great work. Locally and also around the world.
Yes.
In
Yeah.
many places.
They do a lot of can't think of that word. But they really go out. They do a lot of outreach within their community.
Like humanitarian, is that the word you're looking for?
Not quite, but
Okay.
yeah, in that sense, where they really they do a lot of volunteer work. There
Okay,
you go. Yes.
gotcha.
So they really put out a helping hand to the community. So that's in addition to what they do as a company.
So this connection, this mission-driven type of philosophy that you have, when did that start? When was that at a very early age, or is there at a point where it started kicking in? Maybe something triggered that.
I never really thought about that.
Because when people are younger,
Yeah.
often as kids, I don't know about you because you were more introvertish, but
Yeah.
many kids, it's just, how's this going to benefit me
Yeah.
today?
Actually.
So I'm just kind of
Yeah.
wondering if you know when you started really thinking outside yourself.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, it was during high school.
Okay.
I was that person who joined a lot of clubs just so that I could get out of the house and do something.
Okay.
And I did a lot of I did Leo Club, Key Club, just clubs where I could go out there and volunteer and help the community out. I think that was when it first started. Just the fulfillment that I got from helping people and just giving out my time. It just hit me differently as opposed to doing stuff for myself.
Nice. Okay. So after that, God led you then to business, right? You came in, you were still with Habitat for Humanity at that point, so you were doing business part-time. Put into a situation that many would say is not comfortable for introverts, because you're talking about being in a room with a lot of people, having to mix, having to communicate with people, often people that you don't know. Yet you seem to find your place there and start to develop more of these particular skills. How did you sense that it was God's leading that was causing you? Because at one point you weren't even sure if you were going to stay, right? And then you kind of got led back to it. So what role? You're saying everything happens for a reason. Maybe there's some things that stand out that just drew you there. To business.
Oh, to tenacity.
That you could see that God was leading you to put your time there.
Yeah. I think it was just the culture and the environment, the people that I've met.
Mm-hmm.
You know when you come across like good people with a good heart,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew it was a place for me because not only did, business have that faith background, which is not something you see often when
Right.
you're working for a company. So that stood out a lot. And not only did they have that faith background, they incorporated it
Mm-hmm.
into, what they do,
Right.
in our firm. And so that was one thing that I saw that made it very clear that I had to be there. And also, we focus a lot on growth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could see myself, enjoying what it is that we do and, not becoming stagnant and yeah.
Constantly raising up to the next level.
Yes.
Right? So now you came in as an associate and learned financial coaching skills, how to direct people, how to help them with their retirement, how to help them get their kids into college,
Yeah.
you name it, protect the family, all the different things that are important. And you still do that.
Yes.
But then you also got moved into a role after a while as what we would call the main assistant that keeps track of really the majority of what's going through a business that has over 200 people that are doing business in it.
Yeah.
Lots of things. And you may not think flawless, but from the outside, it appears flawless. I mean, this stuff just kind of runs. And Jay always mentions that, he'll ask about, oh, I think I need Sherri to do this, and Sherri's already done it before he even thinks of asking you. You're already like a step ahead. Those administrative details, with a huge team, did you ever see that coming?
No, I have not. It was a surprise when I got a call that that they wanted me to be a part of their team, as far as admin goes and
Right.
all that stuff. I was heading to work one day, and I got a call from Jay, and he said if I wanted the position, and that he needed me immediately. So I had to literally quit my job in 2 days.
Okay.
So I couldn't give a 2 weeks notice. So it came as a surprise, but it was a good surprise. Yeah.
So was there any hesitancy on your part, or you just kind of knew,
Not at
I
all.
need to do this?
Yeah, I knew that I needed to do it. They're in a position that I want to be in, and so I knew that if that's where I wanted to go, that's the position that I needed, the next step that I
Okay.
needed to go towards.
So did you feel that some people would look at a task like that, and people they second guess themselves all the time. They may think, oh, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know, I don't want to mess it up. And so they don't take that step.
Yeah.
And because I'm sure you didn't know everything that was involved when they asked you. I mean, you knew to a degree, but then there's other people that just kind of go, well, if God is opening up this opportunity, then obviously he's going to help me do it.
Yeah.
So which one were you, or were you in the middle?
I went into it I knew, the business and everything. But I went into it excited. I wasn't afraid of anything. I knew, having worked as an assistant before, I knew what was needed of me.
Right.
And so I went in open to learn and open to, grow in that area. And that's where I was when I went in.
Pretty awesome. Okay. All right. So based on everything we've talked about so far, I have another question for you. So obviously you've learned what you're doing very well. You're getting that done very well. But you mentioned already about how, especially in the journey of faith, we're in a constant stage of growth. Okay? So where do you see it going? I mean, obviously you're going to continue to cover what you're doing, but is God giving you a sense of something like expanding, bigger? There are goals that are there that are in your head? I'm just curious.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't see myself as an assistant for a long time.
Right.
My
Okay.
goal is to be in a position where I'm running my own business. I'm helping people grow, and so what I see, at least for me, or what I'm working towards, is being able to do for people what has been done for me, as far as having this business opportunity and being able to use that to bless people and help them get to their full potential, I guess.
Right.
And not only that, I don't think I've told anyone this, but I do have a vision of, I've really taken the time to work on my faith and my relationship with God. And a vision or a goal that's been coming back to me a lot is being involved in a church, and in a way where I'm actually the one speaking to people.
Okay.
Like,
So doing a lot of
on stage.
teaching.
Yeah. So
Right.
I don't know. I have a goal. I write like 10 goals in this journal every single day
Okay.
as a practice. And one of them is to lead a sermon one day.
Okay.
So that's a vision for me. And I don't know exactly what that looks like for me, but I know it has something to do with the church and being involved in that sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you have like a particular audience that's already in your head that God's put in your head, or you're just not sure?
Not quite. I know maybe like young adults, but it's not exactly clear.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I think that things come clearly as time goes
Yes.
on.
Yeah.
They say that life is like pieces of a puzzle, and there's all these pieces, and as another piece gets inserted, another piece, the picture starts to become more and more evident. I think it's just important to keep putting those pieces in there in the perfect timing that it comes, right? So where is that coming from? That's just a real burden to be able to bless people in that way through ideas and like caring, having that care for them. Would that be part of it?
Yeah. I guess that could be part of it. I just know that getting to know God and having a relationship with Him, it has impacted my life in ways that I'm forever grateful for, and I want to be able to give that to other people as well.
Sure.
And so, I guess that's where it comes from.
Okay. So I would want to say, and not only to you, but anyone out there that has these type of goals that they're thinking, oh, I'm not doing that necessarily at the moment, but I just have this sense that God wants me to. I would say, don't ever get confused and think that that's just some fleeting thing, but definitely realize to pursue towards that area, and I believe that God will open up those opportunities as they come. So that's one thing that you would like to do, and continue to grow in your faith. So what do you do? Because some people get in their faith and they kind of get stagnant.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned a lot about growth. So maybe share, I mean, is it through a lot of reading or listening to things? I mean, what are some of the main ways that you continue to grow and not just stay in the same place?
Yeah, that's still something I'm figuring out for myself. These are kind of new ideas that have gone in my head and in my heart. And right now, what I'm doing is every day I take the time, to pray, whether that's 5 minutes or less or a little more, and reading, God's word and, doing a devotional. I try to make that like a main focus every single day. And so that's one thing that I've been working on. But for me, as far as growth goes, one thing that I do need to work on is my relationships. And so I think, being part of Tenacity, that's like a good place to work on that. And so as I continue to grow my business, I believe that aspect will grow itself.
Yeah.
And I'm in a position, I live life where, I'm just going, and I trust God that He's going to lead me in the correct direction. He's going to bring people, to me that I need to meet in order to, do what it is that he's calling me to do.
Right. So you just brought up something that actually was brought up in last week's podcast by Ronnie as well. And that is, God, bring the people into my life that I need to meet.
Yeah.
In other words, be open to that. Be ready for that. And there's another aspect that maybe you would agree with as well that she mentioned. Keep the people out that I don't need to meet.
Yes.
There's that positive, the associations are big, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned this earlier in our conversation, that you had that at APU, then you had good associations with Habitat for Humanity, then God led you over to Tenacity. These are all places where you found good associations versus some of the associations you had earlier on in life.
Yeah.
Do you filter out your associations, or God's just kind of helped you there? I mean, is there a part where you've had to say, in some situations?
Yeah, I think I would say God has helped me in that in that area. As I've gone through life, people come and go,
Right.
and I've never like removed anyone from my life. They're still there. I communicate with them, but I've been intentional with who I listen to, who I'm around, and sometimes I don't get it right all the time, obviously, but I'm aware of it.
Right.
At least long term, like I see how the people I'm surrounded with affects me. And so I just make the necessary adjustments, go from there.
That's awesome. So I wish more people would do that, because this is an area where so many get tripped up in the area of associations, relationships, who they're spending their time with. It's something that God tells us in His Word to be careful of, to actually take stock of. Positive associations can really help you, but the negative can really take you in the wrong direction. So let's get to this. Let's do a little advice giving at this point. You have an imaginary audience out there, but they're real. You just don't know who they are. And we don't know when they're going to see it.
Yes.
I mean, they may see this in the next few weeks, or it might be 10 years from now. I have no idea. Isn't it true that people should get to a point in life, you're pretty easygoing on your life. A lot of people are stressed all the time. Okay? What advice would you give as far as trying to live life in a way that you can find fulfillment? Purpose, not just doing what everyone expects you to do, but actually feel like you're making some progress and making an impact. And yet at the same time, living a life that glorifies God.
Yeah.
Any advice for people on that?
Yeah, actually, I do have something. Personally, one thing that I have, been battling with, at least, growing up, was comparison. I'm really good at comparing myself to others and, beating myself up. But my advice would be to really learn to love yourself. And not only that, do things that you enjoy, do things that feed your soul, feed your energy, at least, the right way. But at the same time, not only just loving yourself in that way, but, going back to God, seeing how He loves you and loving yourself the way that He loves you. So that's one advice that I would give people. And that's, just by getting to know God and getting to know His people and getting to know how to be in a relationship with His people. And just, having that and loving yourself is just an advice that I would encourage people to continue to pursue and continue to develop as they go on through life.
Right. Now I'm curious as you mentioned that, because when any believer says, love yourself, okay, I now, at this point in my life, totally agree with you. But there was a point in my life where I didn't.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is many churches through the years have taught the opposite. They've taught a theology that says, well, we're sinners, so we should not, we shouldn't be, to love yourself is to be conceited. To love yourself is to think more highly of yourself. But then when we look at Scripture, I love what you're saying. Because when we look at Scripture, God, while we were still sinners, because of his love for us, literally died on the cross for us, right? So maybe I think what you're saying, and there's a lot of people out there that maybe are going to churches or maybe they've been taught this from an early age and are not understanding what you just brought out. And that is that if we could just view ourselves the way God actually views us, we wouldn't be so hard on ourselves. I think there's a lot of people that really beat themselves up. And you mentioned comparison. If God wanted you to be the person that you're comparing yourself to, he would have made you just like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So he's given us all the unique qualities to us, right? So would that be your advice? I mean, find out what for the person out there, what is it? Because a lot of people can't even say, did you ever have trouble with this? You ask someone, well, what are your positive qualities? They can tell you the negative.
Yes.
But they have trouble with the positive. Did you ever find that hard?
Yeah. We've been in that position before.
Right.
Yeah.
We're harder on ourselves than anybody else, right?
Yeah, I believe, God each gave us our own story. And so we need to learn to trust him and trust ourselves to, play out that story. And part of that is not comparing yourself or looking at social media or looking at other people and trying to copy what it is that they do. Part of that is just coming to Jesus and just spending time with yourself and just, having continual self-reflection and guidance and course correction to see, what that story is for you. And I don't know. We each have a story, and they're all unique to ourselves, and they all play a role in what is supposed to happen.
Amen. One last question for you that we're going to throw out here.
Yes.
Because it was something that came up last week, and based on what you're saying and where you're going and the sense that you have, I'm going to throw it out to you because it just came to my mind, all right? So I'm really putting you on the spot. So she has no pre-warning of this question, all right? What is the difference between living a life of contentment, but at the same time being not satisfied and still pushing forward to something else? Does that make sense, what I'm asking you?
Yeah. You said the difference with contentment and not being satisfied.
Yeah.
But still pushing
Can
forward.
can they coexist?
I would think so. Yeah.
So in what ways are you content? Because there's a lot of good things that God's done in your life. You shared a lot of them today. So I would think that in that sense you're content.
Yeah, I
right?
would say so.
But at the same time, you're not satisfied. You're not done. You look at yourself 10 years from now in the future, you don't want to be in the same place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So how's the balance on how those go together, where you're not beating yourself up because you're not content, you're grateful, right? But at the same time, you're still pushing forward.
Yeah.
So how do you see that? Is it that growth process in time?
Yeah, it is a growth process. I've been obviously, I read and try to focus on self-development, and a lot of one thing that keeps coming up is always being grateful and to enjoy the moment. And I think being grateful and being in the present is, I would say, plays a part in being content in where you're at.
Right.
And not only that is you're focusing, on the good things that's happening. And sure, you may beat yourself up, but that's why we focus on those things.
Right.
So I guess that's where contentment comes into play. But at the same time, I know where I want to go. I know where I'm currently at as far as where my circumstances are. And it's not where, I'm dissatisfied, but I'm not letting that affect how I see, what I've gone through.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. In fact, you touched on something which our viewers need to know is absolutely golden advice, all right? And I know from personal experience because I messed this up in a lot of the points of my life, and I've seen so many people that do this. You mentioned enjoy the moment, all right? Too many people do not enjoy the moments. They're always looking to the future. Yeah. Yes, we need to be pressing towards the future, but you said something so key, and that is still enjoy the moments now. Otherwise, you're always looking to the future, and you never enjoy the blessings that are coming, right? So thank you for sharing that, because that's very important. Well, I've enjoyed our time together. I threw you some curves, and we went into some things I really made her have to think there, put her on the spot. But I do want to tell you that if you ever want to reach out to Sherri, you can find her on social media. She's out there, and she's one of the nicest people you ever want to meet. And so I'm sure she'd love to hear from you if you had something, maybe that came up in your mind based on something she said today or whatever. Feel free to reach out to her, and she'll get back to you. So thank you so much, and may you all be blessed. This has been the Audacious Faith Podcast. God bless you.